right, we will call this Board of Directors meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. This board has a land acknowledgement and anti-racism statement that we've written in support. It is posted on the Board of Directors website. Roll call tonight. We have all directors present. Moving to adoption of the agenda.
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Second. Linda has her hand up.
I have one thing on 5C. You say that you're going to the AGM budget approval. It isn't the approval. You need to call it the adoption, because that's what state law says you do, is you adopt. So can we make just that one word change, please, to that 5C?
We can do that.
Motion
Thank
to
you.
amend it.
Second. All right, any opposed to that? All right, now back to the motion that was on the floor before that. Was motion to adopt the agenda, and now it's the amended agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Moving on to announcements. Anyone have any announcements?
I'll make an announcement.
Josh and then Linda.
Actually, Linda, you go first.
I was just going to say, we held our candidates. We held our drawing for candidates. There are a really narrow field this year, but y'all should be aware of it if you aren't already. That there were only 3 candidates. They were all for the board. One is Sam Shahan. The other one is Sonia Volt. And the third one is, I believe you pronounce her first name, Tammy Vanderpolder. And those are our 3 candidates. There were no candidates for NNE, and there were no candidates for the ACC committees. I believe Sam still is, I believe Keith is still looking for members even for this year, also for his committee to serve until the end of the year. That's it.
Josh, then Steffi.
Okay, Steffi, don't you even dare. So now I'm losing my train of thought because you guys are.
Kim was getting her singing voice ready. What are you talking about?
No one wants to see that. So next Saturday, the 18th, there's going to be a flea market at the marina. I believe it's from 9 to 12. If you can make it. There's going to be lots of cool little trinkets and all that kind of good stuff. Second of all, for those of you who are on the board currently that are running for board again, I will be sending you a notification about the candidate forums. Tammy, if you're watching, you'll be getting a notification too, but if you're not, you'll probably get an email tomorrow. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up, and thanks for running.
All right. Any other announcements? All right.
I have an announcement. We should sing happy birthday to Joshua. So at the count of 3, we're going to sing happy birthday. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Oh, come on, people. Pick up the pace.
Happy birthday to
you.
Happy
birthday,
Joshua.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, guys. You're all so wonderful. That was almost as bad as my parents singing to me.
I just realized I was on mute. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're so fake.
You're gonna have to send me a single
You have to sing
by
by
yourself.
yourself now. You have to sing by yourself. No excuses.
You owe me, Andy. All right.
Well, everyone
Now that
would
you guys
know
have
if
put the
Josh
community
literally
through
threatened
that.
There are now 0 people on the webinar.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you guys.
All right. Any other announcements? All right. We'll move on to property owner comments.
All right, I'm sure there's got to be some comments at this point. We do have 8 people with us tonight. So if anybody would like to jump in and add their voice, just use raise hand in Zoom. Bring you right over. And in case you're unfamiliar with where that's at, on most programs, it should be at on the bottom menu bar. There'll just be a little hand icon. And I believe on most apps, you just tap the screen and you'll get your little menu options. And there should be a raise hand feature.
I love it when you explain, John. It's so good.
Well, I've been explaining technical stuff for a long time. But not seeing any hands raised tonight.
All right. Well, we'll move forward then. There's another round at the end of the meeting. Moving to continuous business. So Greg Olson from the county had gave me the addendum to the MOU, which is the project specific thing. This is just on the agenda for a discussion. The board, at the last time we discussed this, the board wanted the whole package to go in front of Richard. And so I still need to do that, but I wanted to give the board an opportunity to discuss the addendum to the MOU before, in case there's anything you guys wanted different or to negotiate with the county. Craig said he was more than happy to come back to the next meeting if we wanted him to further discuss. And I just, as a FYI, Nancy Alionak did email me and said that some of the exhibits that the MOU reference are not included. I was not able to get those from Craig as he is not in the office this week. So I will work on getting those for you guys next week as well. And yeah, so at this point, I'm just opening it up to any further discussion that the board has on that. Sam?
Yeah, he is going to show up at our next Zoom meeting.
He can if the board wants him to. He said he's more than willing to come back and discuss if we feel like it's needed. So we had kind of a busy meeting in the AGM stuff, so I didn't want to drag the whole county here with all that stuff going on, and he was out of the office anyway, so.
Oh, do you want to include Nancy on this part of the discussion, or are we just, I guess my concern is just to be sure, number one, that they are not somehow going to try to come back and ask us to cover some additional expense, because it is referenced, internally within the county. That's been said in several different meetings. And so that's a little bit of a concern that they are telling us. They just threw it out there to get a feeler, but yet it's, all of this has kind of shifted a little. This is a project that we weren't aware of, that somebody was aware of, that they determined to do that. They didn't work with us on our, capital planning and everything. I'm not saying it doesn't need to be done. And as you pointed out, if we don't try to work with the county, then they'll just take the money and go spend it somewhere else. So, but I do have concerns because, we've got work at the marina, all of that drainage. They identified that several years ago. And, I don't know why they chose that spot. And especially when there were other locations that to me, you know, I don't know. I'm just saying, I just want to be sure that this is really a long-term relationship and that they're going to continue to do other additional work and that they're not going to expect us to somehow foot the bill other than conservation easements.
Okay, I got a number of hands here. So Linda, then Kim, then Sam, then Steffi.
Just a quickie is on page 2 of this addendum. It refers to SVCA general manager. That should be corrected to the president. And a second signature that says the SVCA president, board of commissioners, and that should be simply the SVCA president and probably either the vice president or the secretary, whichever can sign. I think usually Josh has. That needs to be corrected big time.
But we might have to change that anyway due to AJ, right? You're recusing yourself from some of this, so we'll have to figure something out with that.
Then Joshua, and it's just the way it's written. We're not going to have the general manager. It might be you and Steffi then.
Right, that's
It would
fine. I
have to
just
be
wanted
an
to make note of
executive.
that to remember
Okay,
that AJ
gotcha.
will be involved. Okay.
No problem.
Okay.
Kim?
I did some footwork out in that
Hey,
area.
Sam, I
and-
think Kim was next. Sorry.
Was it
Hold
Kim?
on. Kim, then Sam, then Steffi.
Yeah, so my comment was not having very much experience with this, but I do remember Nancy raising a point that sometimes counties do pay for easements. And as a treasurer, I'm looking at this from a financial perspective. I think it might be a good idea for us to explore the county paying for an easement, particularly if a lot of the money that they're using are tax dollars that Sutton Valley is paying. So I think I would like to see us explore charging them for an easement, as well as Sonia's point of making sure that any ancillary cost or unexpected costs that arise, we're not on the hook for paying that. I just want to make sure that we are getting what we're paying into this for, and there are no unexpected expenses. That's my comments.
Okay. Sam?
I went out and talked to some of the residents in that spot. I talked to the current one that's really directly affected right on the corner, the downhill side. And he didn't know anything about the property. That was the pastor for the church. But he directed me to talk to a former owner. And it turns out she was in Arizona, but I had a nice conversation with her about some runoff problems they've had in those houses. That was a direct result of that catch basin outside their garage on the downhill off the road. And then so some of those homes in that area were experiencing various times some water problems. And I kind of have to admit, after I looked at some of their, it would actually benefit some of that area right down those 3-4 homes. And I was going to go back and talk to some of the other people and look at where some of that water is going. They're telling me what they were doing to clear their own little drainage areas and where the water was running out of the catchment basin. And it probably had problems because the thing filled up with sediment in that spot, and maybe it wasn't cleared out regular. But also I was up and down the hills over there and looking at what's draining down into there, and it shouldn't be horrible sediment. And there's a lot of it's just grassy, beautiful culvert. Culverts are clear. There's a lot of nice ditches down through there, not much construction, but some of that looks to be beneficial. There's a couple of things that I was directed that there's some issues with the water running across the road from some other parts of that culvert, that deep ditch on the uphill side filling. And so that's a cleaning issue. So it was interesting to talk with them about that. They they knew some stuff. We probably would benefit in that area. So before I was thinking they were going to just end up putting some expense on us, but some of that could benefit those particular homes. So I kind of changed my mind a little bit about some of that could be beneficial. And also, I think that it's also almost appears like a test project that they can actually gauge the water, their system they want to use to clean that. It's I don't know. I'm the language and getting them to pay for the easements. It's like a good idea, but there is some. I was before skeptical. It's like there is a little bit of beneficial activity that would happen for us. It could help us a little bit and help those homes. That's all I got.
Steffi?
I'm sorry. We just got a question. I'm going to start with this. Oh, she answered. Okay, never mind. So I know that we did a really good job of letting the county know how we felt. And I didn't even say anything because usually, we have to really point that out, but what a great job as a board we did relaying those concerns. And of course, that's my concern too. And I think that's pretty much, am I gathering that that's why I would like it to go in front of Richard, just for the language. That's the only concern I have as well. And then I was going to ask AJ if there was going to be like a special work group or something, because then we could incorporate Nancy with, I don't know, it sounds like Sam's pretty knowledgeable, not to voluntold anyone, but just kind of wondering. Thanks.
I got Keith's hand up, and then I think I saw Sonia's hand come up again.
Oh, I'm trying to unmute there. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I don't think Sudden Valley should be on the hook for any maintenance issues in perpetuity on this. That's all I wanted to say, whether you work it out in an easement or however you work it out. I just think the county should be responsible for maintaining any issues that come up and not Sudden Valley. That was it.
I just have my hand up because Steffi already referenced it because somebody in chat couldn't get logged on and wasn't able to speak during member comments. So, but Steffi already brought it up and Kim already answered her in chat.
We could let Cheryl come over after we're done with this agenda item before we go to new business quick, I think.
Okay.
I saw someone else. Josh, is that you that put your hand up?
Yeah. From what I remember on the last meeting, the guy was, and I say the guy, sorry, I don't remember everyone's names. I'd have to pull that up, but from what I remember, they were talking about, possibly asking for an easement. And I mean, if that's really all that there is, I get the tax thing too, Kim. But we don't want to scare them off and not be able to actually do some of this stuff. But I don't see a problem with that. If that's what we're in for. But I would take a hard stance of what Keith just said. I mean, we shouldn't be on the hook for anything, but just my opinion.
We'll need an easement, just so that's aware. It's all on private property, so. Sam, I think guessed your hand come back up.
Yes. Some bargaining there that definitely have them pay for any problems with piping or catchment. If we get to negotiate some things, it's if all we got to do is vacuum the muck out of the vaults in those 3 spots in the middle of the road. It's a big deal to close the road for a little bit, but it's pretty straightforward, accessible. And the amount of times we need to do it, I don't see it being a lot, especially with 3 of them. But definitely and because there's big sewer lines run down through there, so there's stuff, and definitely have them pay for any problems with any of the underground, but maybe negotiate with us doing that. I was against any of that stuff, but if all we had to do is vacuum out the catch basins, that's manageable. It could be a once a year thing. That's all I got.
Yeah, likely less. They have to, the MPDS permits for the county that the county has with the state, they have to inspect every 18 months, I believe, and only factor things out if it warrants it. Do we have any other discussion on that?
I agree with Josh and others. If it's just the easement, I think it seems like a good deal. I think along with Steffi, it would be, I think, really great and advantageous perhaps to have Rich look at it just to make sure that's the case. You know, those county people, they can spring stuff on you.
Yeah, I'll get it through Richard here once I get the exhibits that go with it as well for you guys.
That sounds great. I'm just teasing. They seem pretty straight up.
Any other discussion? All right. John, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Can you bring Cheryl over real quick so she was not able to get logged in quite in time.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheryl, I'm going to go ahead and bring you into the meeting. You can go ahead and unmute when you're ready.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yep. Hi, Cheryl.
All right. I do apologize. I've been here since 7 o'clock trying desperately to log in so that I could have got to the member comment at the very beginning. For those of you who know me know I'm not a complainer, but I am going to file a complaint at this point. I would like to request a formal stop work order against Rubicon Construction on 10 Caddy Lane. One for violation of our rules and regulations, section 371 regarding blocking the street without notification and without traffic diversion assistance. They have for the last 2 days blocked the road with a logging truck. And we have had absolutely no notification that this was going to happen. And there's been no traffic assistance, diversion, or anything along that road. My husband actually witnessed a small Subaru going off the road towards the pond to avoid the logging truck that was loading logs at that time, which I believe could be an OSHA violation. So I do believe that a stop work order is justified. And they need to be in compliance with our rules and regulations. It's become a safety issue. I don't know, I know you're short-staffed, and I know that's hard to enforce. My husband did call security. They never showed up. Never. I know that my neighbor.
I sent security up there yesterday to talk to them.
Okay.
And so it sounds like the contractor's ignoring that verbal warning.
They are.
So,
And
the other step was that they're also security's writing a report, because that's the first step of us being able to issue that stop work order, is that we had to verify. So security said they went out there and they're writing the report so we can move forward if this was continuing. So
okay.
I'm glad you called, because nobody else called today.
Well, according to my husband, our next door neighbor has attempted to call the admin office and has not had anyone respond. I do know that, you guys are short staffed and this is difficult to enforce. But this is a major issue. If someone were to get hurt by one of those logs or hurt by something else in that construction site, we'd be liable. So, you know.
We'll get with our staff and put that in motion.
Okay, I do appreciate it very much. And I appreciate you allowing me to interject this untimely into the meeting because I missed the other time frame. So I do appreciate that very much. Thank you.
You're
for
welcome,
calling,
Cheryl.
Cheryl.
Thanks for
Thank you, Cheryl.
telling us that. I just wanted to respond that we know that this has been an issue. I've got it right next to my house. People are not being polite when they come into our valley to build. And that's not acceptable. And they are blocking the roads. They are doing all of the things that you are saying. And it's not fair or right. And I personally plan on addressing it. So,
well,
thank
according
you.
to our AC&C regs, also, they're supposed to be providing parking on site. This is also not happening. Now, I understand that's a small lot. Okay, but there were 2 vehicles parked on the north side of the pond, 2 on the south side of the pond, 2 next to the restroom, 1 in front of our house, 1 in front of our neighbor's house, and 1 in the middle of the yard of the resident that lives directly next to this project. Now, I don't know if that resident gave them permission, but I suspect not. So I really think that's worth looking into.
Yep.
Yeah, we did receive an email on this property or this contractor, and I sent security out to talk to them, but sounds like they resolved things just temporarily and went back to their habits.
Well,
So
can we enforce a stop work order on them?
we'll move forward with our staff on dealing with that.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the time and I appreciate the effort. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Cheryl. I'll go ahead and return you to the attendees.
Thank you.
Keith, I saw your hand go up.
Can I say something? I just, for everybody that's listening, we actually aren't short-staffed. There's like, that office has 4 people in it. And John is also he's up there taking shifts too, to relieve them from the window a little bit. So if you called and didn't get through, I would say it's probably because they were busy. But yeah, we definitely aren't short-staffed up there. Okay, thank you.
AJ, Keith has his hand up.
Yeah. Keith, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I agree. I've heard numerous issues and it's always the same response. The security does not want to respond to them. And so I don't know if that's an issue that we need to take as a board and address security and what they're actually supposed to be doing, or we're just looking the other way. This is not like the first time we've heard this as a board, and I know that. I've seen the emails. And so this is something we need to address and actually take seriously. It's an issue, especially with how many new builds we have, but there's so many other issues with just basic non-compliance with people putting sheds in their front yards or doing whatever they feel like. And it's like we're taking months to respond. And I personally just don't feel that's the right recourse that we're doing. So that's all I had to say.
We do have a meeting. Well, we had a meeting set with security, but unfortunately, one of our security officers passed away, and that kind of put that on hold for a minute. And so, yeah, we're getting that rescheduled to talk with them a bit more about their role. And yeah.
Yeah, it's and Keith, we've talked about this too. There's procedures in place. And so I think what has happened, and it is not recent, apparently sounds like this was happening last year too. Security had not, security is actually compliance on this. This thing about saying there's no compliance is, again, one of those disinformation. Security is is who you contact. That is your initial step, and they have the ability to write warnings and issue violations. And then if they think that cars need to be towed, or if there needs to be a stop work order, then they know how to process that. And like you say, Keith, the problem is that they're not doing it, but it's because it sounds like they weren't being asked to do that over the last year. And so, as AJ said, we had an appointment to speak with their field manager to get that back on track. And that's something you and I discussed too. So there, depends on what the complaint is. Some of those complaints are like when it's a builder on a parcel, there's a procedure for that for ACC or a homeowner to file a complaint on that. And it's a process where they always get issued a warning first. And then if they don't respond properly to that, then our recourse is other than if they're blocking roads and things, but if it's on a parcel, we can start to issue fines. We do have the ability to stop work on those parcels too, but generally you start threatening a builder with fines. And so like I said, those are the things that, you and I discussed, Keith, and we just need to get those processes and procedures back in place and going, because they've been lax. So does that help?
No, I agree with you. The procedures need to be in place. They actually are. They're just not being enforced. And
well, they don't come. They got to come to us before we can enforce them. That's part of the problem, right? Like if we don't know about them, we can't enforce them.
Yeah, I get that. But if we're saying security is the one that's supposed to start the process, then we really need to be on security to start that process.
Right. And
So,
that's, yeah.
Yeah. So irregardless, like we always say, we're a multi-million-dollar corporation, but yet we're not enforcing these things. And I just think we need to spend a little more time in looking at how to enforce these things. That's all I have to say. So I'm hearing a lot of it too, because I am the ACC chair. So I hear a lot of this, and the ACC chair has we can't do anything about this. It's all security. Everything goes back to security, and security's, they haven't been doing it. So that's all I have
You
to say.
can, if you find a violation on a site, you actually can. You just need to document what the violation is.
Yeah,
yeah.
I get that, but that's what I'm saying is security doesn't appear to know what they're supposed to be doing. Like most of the times I hear security is called and they don't want to have anything to do with it. Oh, that's not us. That's something else. And in reality, it is them. I mean, they have to.
Okay, so Keith, if we're telling people to use security, if we're informing them, that should be helping as well. Because for one, I went through this entire process and didn't realize that security needed to document, because I've never had a problem before. So, I mean, if we're telling people and we're talking about it, hey, get security to document, contact security, have it documented and sent to the ACC, then, I mean, one, we're doing more than I've seen in the 5 years that I've lived here. And two, I mean, we realize that the process is broken, but we need to inform people that that's what they do. And when security told me that they don't get involved, I said, well, you're going to tonight because you need to come and document. I said, I need you to document these infractions. This is not a neighborly dispute. This is between me and a builder who is violating the rules. And so then they came out, and then he didn't stop. And when he called me, I said, why didn't you stop? I was standing in my driveway. I said, okay, well, why don't you come back now and talk to me? And so they do need some lessons in customer service.
Yeah. And it seems like that he is, that there's, like I said, there's standard operating procedures, and they just fell into a hole, apparently. I don't know. But those are the things that we've got to go a little beyond the staff here. And like AJ was saying, because unfortunately Kevin passed, and then Mike took time off. They substituted temp staff in there. We just now have Mike back. And so that contributed to some of the confusion over the last week about what they were supposed to do. I'm not making excuses. I'm saying though, we're working on it. It just takes a little time when they've been working a certain way, and we need to deal with their bosses to get them back on track with this is what the agreement is and this is what we need you to do. You know,
Joel and Linda have their hands up.
Yeah, I saw Linda then Joel.
So it's my turn. There have been lots of forms that have come to the board that are on the official forms of here's a member complaint against builders and stuff. Many of those I've never seen a response to at all, whether they've been handled, whether they haven't been handled. I feel sorry for some of these people. Most recently, that lady that sent us something about the Labor Day weekend, where it was completely ruined. Is somebody going to tell her that she has to fill out one of those forms before anything's going to be done?
that
You know, that's
lady
the,
was
you know, but
talked
I'm
to.
saying
It just
people are
doesn't get put out
contacting
in
us.
public. But she was contacted. That's what I'm saying. Like, just because they contact the board and then once staff takes it, she was contacted, and she was contacted by Lake Waccamaw Sewer and Joel Carter. That's what I'm saying. Like, some of this stuff goes, just because it comes to the board does not mean it's not getting taken care of because you aren't aware of it. She's been responded to multiple times.
Excellent. I'm just saying there have been several times this year where there have been forms filled out by people about violations, about with builders and stuff in different areas. And I just, I would assume if it's sent to the board, we at least get some sort of notice that this is being handled. Because then suddenly you'll see somebody come back and say, well, I contacted the board back. I'm just saying for some of us, there's no way to know if we're handling it. I think right now, and maybe I'm wrong and y'all can say it's good for business and everything, I think we have too many bills going on.
We don't get to control that though.
I agree though, because it's chaos.
Exactly. We're a small association. We don't have the resources of the county to deal with all this. Let's face it. They come out, bless a lot, and then go away. And once ACC gives them their approval, which they're required to do, and it's just if we get to the point of where we can't manage it because we have builders that can't obey the rules, before a builder is allowed to build, I think you need to put the rules in front of them and make them sign a thing that says they know exactly what all of our construction requirements are. Because I think some of these guys just go, I'm going to do what I want to do and go pound sand. And I think that's wrong. And can you create a fine to say, hey, fine, we gave you the rules, you signed on this, you agreed to obey by it. If you can't, it's just, I guess it's because I see as much construction as I do. And some of it's just amazing. Brian has to have been able to have watched that one that went in down in Louisview. Man, they had foundations in within a week. I swear. It was just scary to watch how quick it was happening.
Yeah, well, Linda, I thank you for saying all that. And they do have a form that they sign, they fill out a checklist, but they fill it out. So they say, yes, we comply with everything, when in fact, they do not comply with everything. But that's the way to get it through and get your date stamped on there to get everything started. I would go back to, like Steffi said, that 5 years, she hasn't seen any compliance or anything like that. That's a long time. And maybe that's something we should be more focused on, because I do agree. I mean, I don't understand people can call in and complain. They can send in the formal complaints. All right, do it right. Do it this way. They do it that way. And still they've had no response. It could be that it's being handled or looked at least, but the people don't know that are filing the complaints. They don't know that it's actually being addressed. Somebody's looked at it. Somebody's responded. They don't know that. So I think we need to step up our game there.
Well, also, I would just like to say that personally, I mean, not that the HOA doesn't have a say or any power, but there's also a county. And so when I don't get what I need, I go higher. And these things like the log truck that Cheryl was explaining, I mean, we need to get, as a community, I think we should be reporting that to the county, to LNI. That kind of stuff is ridiculous. I just, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, we got
Anyway.
Joel, then Josh, then Brian.
I was just gonna say a quick response to Steffi there is like, so county does have their requirements here, right? And we as an HOA, we can have stiffer requirements than the county can have. And they are supposed to abide by those.
Oh,
And- I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was saying absolutely. I wasn't trying to negate any of our power. I was just saying I would let them know as well, because that's also a problem for them.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Joel. Sorry.
All right. I was just gonna say, and I'm sorry to be a downer, but as convenient as it is to blame security, we are supposed to be managing them, and if we're delegating to them, we're supposed to be either having processes in place to hear from them if something gets resolved, and we need to have a deadline to hear from them, and if we're not, then we need to be following up with them. And the idea that it just goes out to security and then we get an email 3 weeks later from someone saying nothing has happened. Like the first time that happens, we need to, something should have changed. Some sort of process should have been put in place. So thank you, Cheryl, for calling in on that, because yeah, something needs to change. We've gotten plenty of emails indicating that things are not getting resolved. And I think directors as well as other members are really affected by this. So there's no reason not to act.
Josh.
I just got to say that we've got a lot of subjective stuff flying around here. You know, I have a build next to my house. Obviously, it looks more like impending doom to me because it's right next to my house, but I go down the street, there's no builds. So, you know, I don't know how we can say that, yeah, there's too many builds, it's more than normal. How do we know that without any, I don't have anything in front of me that says it. And at the same time, these are lots that are going to be built on. It stinks. I don't know what to do about that. But I think we need to not be so subjective in our opinions here on what's what, because I think it's going to create a lot of, I don't know, that's how stuff gets created that we have to deal with that we don't like. So I would just try to stick with the facts here. Trees coming down, not good, but it's going to happen. And, some of these builds, like the one next to me, the guy's doing it perfect. They've taken their time. They've put in the stuff right. Down the street, there's another build completely opposite. So, there's going to be different experiences all around. And we can't really say that because of one incident that, we've been dealing with, that everything's going to be bad with builders. So just an opinion.
I would like to respond to Josh real quick and say, hey, I agree with you totally. And you're right. Some builders are awesome and they do a great job and they care about everything. And some other builders are only in here to make a buck. But the bottom line is each builder should abide by the rules and regulations of Sudden Valley. And that would make them all great builders, no matter what their concern was, making a buck or being really concerned about environment and what they're building for a new family. So my thing would just be, we need to figure out who is in charge of enforcing the rules that are already in place. We're just enforcing rules that have been here for a while and actually making that happen, because that's the problem I hear, like ACC all the time is like, I call and complain and nothing happens. I see this and nothing happens. Why am I putting in a form and asking for a request for something when someone else does whatever they want down the street? And so I do have a hard time with that. And it's one of my biggest challenges. So I agree with you in one aspect, but everyone could build here and follow the rules and regulations, and they'd all be great builders as far as our rules and regulations.
Well,
That's-
just to clarify, because the way you say that, it just makes me sound like I think everyone should have a free for all. I definitely think they should be following our rules. So let me just make sure that, we're on the same page there. Thanks, Keith.
Yeah,
I
I got it.
heard free for all. That's all I heard.
Brian and Sonia.
Yeah, I agree with Josh. There can be, recency bias. There can be localism bias. And certainly in my neighborhood, there's been some, pretty, builds that have changed the character of certain aspects of the neighborhood, right? And maybe even seem to not comport with what Sudden Valley is or what Sudden Valley is supposed to be, right? And so I have a couple issues there. We are striving to be a sustainable community, right? And we live on a watershed. And one of the things we have to think about is the sediment load that is entering our watershed. And each time we build, the sediment enters our water supply of Bellingham. And so are we being really good stewards by doing things as we're doing? We could perhaps open things up a bit and perhaps give landowners, give lot owners the ability to sell their lot to a conservancy or something like that and get fair value for it. There's all kinds of ideas that we could pursue. I am told that Bellingham, the city, would be willing to do that, but they feel that we want every lot for our future, for dues and such. So we would have to decide as a community that we are willing to take some lots off the books, right? And make it green space. Is that worth it for us as a community that strives to be sustainable? If we're saying we're sustainable, then we should do more than give lip service to that, right? And so, so that's a point. And second point is, I'm not sure that all lots that are built have to be clear cut completely, right? It seems like a lot of homes, or it seems like a lot of the lots that are built now are just completely clear cut, and people are making big money off of those cedars, right? So I think we need to take a closer look at that, whether it's this body, right, writing or looking, acting in terms of oversight of the ACC, or interacting with the county. I feel like we can have a voice there at the very least, or we should at least take a stand, not that I'm anti-building, I'm just saying we can give options, and we can perhaps build in a way that is smarter and more judicious.
All right. Anybody else?
I'm hoping that I'll
Oh, yeah.
go away and that's look, I'll try to cut to the chase. There's a lot of this is a complex issue. Brian's referencing density reduction. That's a program that had been put in to effect. The reality is that right now, with the market the way it is, it's going to be very hard for Sudden Valley or the county or the city or another group to purchase the lots at the type of market value that those builders are getting. That's not to say that that won't change, but that's the reality of where we are right now. And that's why you're seeing a lot of building. As far as the amount of trees that get taken down, the county has oversight of that. We don't. We only control our property, and there's certain amount of oversight about what they can do. They need to stay within those regulations. But the reality is, as far as a number of trees and how they take them down, there's county rules and regs. We're in the Lake Whatcom watershed overlay. That's the law. And so regarding compliance, there are multiple aspects of compliance. And Keith, I have literally called you for over a week trying to schedule a Zoom with you and AJ and some of our staff so that we could talk about this issue. And because ACC is involved in certain aspects of this compliance, just like security, these procedures are there. They need to be enforced. We do have the ability to fine, but we can't get to that process unless, these things are documented. and that warnings have been given out, because that's part of our policies. That's what these builders have agreed to, unless there is, like, you know, what Cheryl was mentioning. If there are occasions that you can do a stop work order immediately, but most of the time it's going to be impacted by fines. But we have to get people to do those forms properly and follow up. You know, our job isn't to patrol the streets. We're the board of directors, and we do pay our security a good deal of money and our staff, you know, and so we just need to make sure that everybody understands these procedures and that we're all on the same page. And so hopefully, Keith, we'll talk this next week, you know, and we'll work with staff to make sure that it works with what you guys are doing. And then I think then it'd be a good idea to, you know, loop the board in on that. But you know, the goal had been to what will work with security today, because it hasn't been being enforced. There are standard operating procedures in place for all of this. It's not been enforced for a very long time. That's the problem. If we want to enforce it, we need to make sure it works with the staff we have, and that we can have the right oversight, or it's just a mess. You'll have a builders appealing everything, and because we're not consistent, we're just spinning our wheels. We have to be very, very consistent in what we're doing. So it's going to take teamwork. It takes, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm gonna, you know, I'm putting that out there because we have been working on this, and like AJ pointed out, we're working with security, but we hit a little bit of a roadblock, and we have to be compassionate about that. And we're just now getting back on track with our regular security staff, and then we'll, you know, it just is what it is. There are a lot of builds going on, and that's just what happens, you know. But we got to work together if we want to change it, you know, and it's a process.
All right, well, Brian, go ahead. We got to get moving here, though.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say I agree with you, Sonia. Except for the fair market value, I do feel that we could find entities who would purchase those properties for fair market value. I've been talking to some folks who are involved with the watershed and such, and I feel that we could find buyers for those properties. But otherwise, thanks.
All right. All right. Getting back onto the regular agenda. Thank you, Cheryl. Moving on to new business, we have the general manager's recruitment advertisement. I sent all you guys the branded version. You know, the text version is included in the agenda packet. And earlier today, I sent you guys all the branded version. And looking to get that beginning the advertisement with Novak tomorrow. And yeah, so I guess looking to see if there's any discussion on that here. I'll make a motion that the board approve the advertisement of the GM recruitment package.
Second.
Do we have any discussion on it? Josh?
Yeah, I just sent you back a couple little minor changes that I had. I'd like to get that fixed from them. But everything else looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think we can do some minor edits to some things here before it gets posted tomorrow. Any other discussion? I'll just say that I'm looking forward to getting that open, and it will be great to get that process underway, and looking forward to see what sort of quality candidates we bring in.
Likewise. Thank you, AJ.
Linda? You're on mute.
I was looking at the old package and I finally got to the final page of the new package. And I'm just wondering if under compensation and benefits, if the high end of that compensation has been considered in the 2022 budget, that's going to be viable if you end up at that number.
It has.
Okay.
Yep. Any other discussion? All right. Hearing none, we'll call the question. The motion on the table was the board approve the advertisement of the GM recruitment package. All those in favor?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. All right, thank you. And moving on to the bylaw amendment. We had the last meeting, we left this one off, I think because we were going, I don't remember exactly now off the top of my head, but I think we had the last one to approve was the member in good standing amendment. And I think we had some further discussion last time where we were discussing the floor voting and getting some further feedback from Richard on that. So,
Do you want to take the first part of that question? You want to just make that motion on the member in good standing, measure 6?
yeah, we'll make the motion that the board approve to put on the ballot bylaw amendment to amend voting to remove the member in good standing restriction.
Second.
Do we have any, I know we discussed it last meeting. Do we have any further discussion on this one?
Call it.
All right, we'll call the question. The motion was just stated. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, Anthony, and document review for that. All right, the next agenda item is the adoption of the 2022 budget. So make a motion that the board of directors adopt the 2022 budget as previously presented to the board.
Second.
Seconded.
Do we have any further discussion on that? All right, call the question. The motion was just stated. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
I'm abstaining.
opposed? Joel abstains. All right, moving
AJ?
on.
AJ, I just have one question and maybe you want to wait until you take a look. You sent a sample of the of an updated pamphlet. I'm curious, have we finally gotten the updated reserve study?
Joel is finishing that up right now.
Okay.
We have the drafts, we just don't have the stamped final version.
Draft is probably all we need because you're not going to put the stamped version in the booklet, are you?
Well, what I need is, I especially need the date from the final version.
Oh, that's right, because that's still blank. Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're asking Joel to push on Schwint to get that to us tomorrow. So
Thank
hopefully
you.
that will materialize. But moving on to the ballot materials, there's still a couple things to tidy up with regards to the reserve study, pretty much. And then I think Linda's still waiting maybe on an answer on whether or not we could do things in color and what sort of costs that would have. And so we'll have to make a decision on that once we hear back from them. I would imagine it's not too expensive. I know when we did color for one of the, I think it was the survey that we did versus the black and white, it was only a couple $100 more, I think.
I'm not sure. She sent me, but when I asked her, she sent me back and she said, I'll look into it. I know she told me they were going to be very, very busy this week.
I think the main discussion that we have for this agenda topic is I sent you guys all email from Richard. It looks like we're going to need to host an in-person AGM with the changes to state law that happened, as well as offering a proxy ability to do a proxy vote. And Linda put some language together for that, which is in the last page. Well, she sent us a one-page snippet, and then the last one that I sent out, we pulled that language in. And so last meeting, we voted to host a Zoom meeting. Unbeknownst to us at the time, that was technically not a legal motion. Which we've now been informed by Richard. So that motion was not actually valid as a result. And so for Linda's sake, I'll make a motion that the board approve the hosting of the AGM in the dance barn.
An in-person AGM rep instead of a online one.
Yeah, and we've been just, me and Josh were discussing, and we got to talk with John a little bit about the logistics of this, but we were going to also offer Zoom as well, so that community members could participate via Zoom still too. So it'd be a bit of a hybrid approach. Linda just actually did this with their candidate drawing meeting the other night. And yeah, so there's still the distinct possibility, and Richard recognized this as well, that with the COVID stuff kind of ever changing, we could see proclamations come back in place that restrict gatherings and all of that kind of stuff. And so having a hybrid approach would allow us to pivot a little more easily if we do get gathering restrictions and stuff put back in place. We'll already have the Zoom information set up and in our ballot packet information and everything like that.
Yeah, I'd second that.
Sam,
Hey,
was that you?
I'm gonna play the system here for a second. What's our total? Wait, hold on one sec. Sorry.
Good night, Daddy.
Good night. Love you, dude. Sorry, I had to say night. So what do we have to have for quorum if we do a hybrid here? Do we really need to try to fill out the barn, or can we have a couple people sitting down there and encourage people that they can use Zoom? I personally, I'll do whatever we have to do here, but I really don't want to sit in a room with you guys right now. And, I just want to put that out there. Is there any way that we can kind of maneuver around the system a little bit to make it more comfortable for our community and for, you know, everyone who has to be here.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why they would still be participating in the meeting as long as they're logged in via Zoom, like our attendees are. Obviously, people just watching the live stream on YouTube can't be counted towards the quorum. But yeah, I think
We
I don't see any
definitely,
reason why the mixture of the two can't count.
I thought last year that, wasn't it that it's the mailed in ballots, like that they'll count towards the Linda, towards a quorum?
it did, but I want to look at what, and there's somewhere in one of these RCWs that say that mailed ballots count toward, much like a proxy, count toward your quorum. But I want to read what the bylaws say because I'm beginning, and they're downstairs and I'm upstairs right now. So I'd like to confirm what that says and be able to tell you what state law I read that said that mailed ballots can count towards your quorum, just like a proxy counts towards a quorum. But I believe there's somewhere that it's stated that mailed ballots also count, but I think we definitely need to check on that.
So I don't think the quorum is going to be the issue. I think we'll be fine there. I'm just wondering if we can, you know, kind of direct this a certain way.
Joshua, in the past, when they've needed a quorum, when I've had people counting downstairs in the counting room and stuff, plus the master counter and some of the final tally folks that are there, the assistants and stuff, they always asked us to sign and count towards quorum because in theory we're really there. It's just we're downstairs. You're talking about sitting down somewhere quietly in a room somewhere and being able to attend via Zoom, correct?
Yeah. I mean, as you know, I don't think we'll have an issue with quorum. And then two, you know, if we need to have someone down there, I don't know. We'll figure it out. I don't want to say, hey, I'm not going to be down there, but I will go down there. I just don't want to have to make people have to go down there to take part in a community conversation and, you know,
Yeah.
possibly risk their lives to talk about HOA stuff. So
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, and Richard had said if, you know, a governor issues another proclamation, you know, he'll work with us to craft an emergency declaration like last time. That would give us the basis to be able to host the entire thing via Zoom. But he said because that proclamation was lifted and the gathering restrictions were lifted, he doesn't see kind of the mechanism to go that route 100% again. I saw Kim, then Sam.
I was going to say if we don't have the proclamation from the governor, can we just because of COVID, just limit the number of people that are in the barn and ask that the remainder of the folks do the online version, just so we don't have a room full of 100 people. Not that I expect that many people, but I feel like we should have some precautions set in place, almost like a reservation, you know, if you're going to come and be in attendance, make a reservation so we can keep a limit on the number of people that are there.
Sam?
So is it possible then the boundaries of our room can be set by us to where it could even include a temporary fenced off area outside, downstairs room set to where we could have some tied together, but keep people really separated if we needed to? It sounds like we could declare the barn as our room, possibly outside, if we designate, heck, we could just do little lines out somewhere, but it does sound like we could possibly adjust the boundaries of what we call the room.
Yeah, those are all possibilities, I think.
AJ, I wanted to speak to Kim's question, if I may. I know that you're a board of 9, and depending upon if you're going to have people give their reports, one of the ways that you could keep it to a minimum is there has to be a parliamentarian. You have to be there as the presiding officer. We need the treasurer because she does the presentation of the budget, and the secretary needs to be there. Other than those those folks, unless somebody's there and going to give a report, the board can be absent, and it would at least give you a chance of where y'all don't have to be jammed at a table together up front. And just explain that due to COVID, and find out which of the directors, you've got all the reports and stuff that are in here, that sort of thing. And just if you're not going to have, like last year, so many people simply submitted theirs in the committee reports in writing rather than actually stood up and said anything. And I'm just saying, for document review, parks and whatever, if you weren't going to give a report, that, you could just simply, I'm just giving you some options here so that you might be able to have fewer people there.
Yeah, we can obviously, we don't have to have all those details squared away tonight, obviously.
No,
So we
I'm
can
just trying to
continue
give
to
you
kind of
some
talk
options.
about this and figure out some of those logistics here over the next couple meetings.
Okay. One of the things, I've got something else. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll wait till are we down to the AGM agenda and ballots? Or are we still working on the budget? We're working on the
No.
AGM.
We're on the ballot and the agenda.
So I saw your latest revision of the agenda. You still have things you have to change. And I don't know if you want to discuss those here, but especially with the agenda, there's still some things you have to add for when people vote in person. And the other thing I was going to say is I noticed that in some of the bylaw measures, you changed the wording. Mostly that I can see, it's only in the name of the measure where you've made it more succinct, but it isn't the same thing that the board voted on.
Yeah, we just broke those up so they're on separate pages. So we don't have multiple
and it's good
measures
that
on one page.
What I'm saying, or I'm trying to say to you, is that you've changed the wording in some of them too. I'm just trying to be the bad guy in the room here. And I know you're making it more specific, and that's wonderful, but it's not what the board voted on. That's all.
You're
That's
talking
my
about
point.
the title. You're talking about just like the title. Nothing's changed on those measures. Is that what you're talking about?
What you changed the title of measure 2 from the bylaw amendment to exclude member petitioned assessment increases to bylaw amendment to allow president to reject member petitions that violate applicable law. That's a considerable change.
Yeah, but that's because the first one wasn't accurate, and it's just the headline. I mean, that's like just the title. The measure didn't change. Nothing inside that measure changed.
I know, but it's still what people vote on.
I've seen those change plenty of times.
Do we
But
need to
okay,
vote to approve those
we vote.
changes?
Yeah, let's revote if we need to so that there's not any. Yeah.
You know, I just don't want to, I'm just saying in the past, it's like, it is what it is, what it is, what it is. I'm glad you divided up measures 3 and 4, because before you didn't have them divided up. You know, because all it said was bylaw amendments to clarify borrowing and special assessment purposes, and then you had measure 3 and measure 4. But it's the new way you've written it is far more, gives far more clarity, and you know, to both of those, which is a really good thing. And I think 5 is still the same.
Okay, well, we can
Okay.
just revote on that here. We do have a motion on the table right now to host an in-person AGM with a Zoom component to it. So we'll call the question on that one first, and then we can move forward with those
Okay.
other things. All those in favor of an in-person AGM?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. So then,
Hey, I do have a question. If the in-person AGM is part of our bylaws and it's something that's required of us, was it necessary that we just voted on that?
probably not specifically, but since we've kind of been discussing it opposite of that, I don't know, just for clarity's sake, I think it's fine. But yeah, you're probably right. It's not completely necessary.
Well, it's just the last meeting you voted to do a Zoom webinar. That's why it's just kind of coming up now.
Okay.
So
So
go ahead, Brian.
I just have a quick question. We did not have an in-person AGM this year, right? So what has changed from this year to last year? I'm sorry that if I missed that or misinterpreted that. Or
The governor rescinded the proclamation.
Oh, right.
20-51 ended, I think, like the end of July-ish or something, or maybe it was August. I don't remember the exact
So if
date
that
now.
goes back into force then before the fall, then we can probably go back to being online. And okay, that's, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and Richard even said to me, he was like, it's rather strange the way the governor handled it, because he still has proclamations in place to allow councils of local jurisdictions to do virtual stuff, but he took away our ability to do that. And yeah, our bylaws are specific that the exceptional circumstances of COVID and why we're allowed to have board meetings like this is because that only applies to the board meetings. That same language isn't in our annual meeting bylaws. Linda?
So here comes the elephant in the room. Proxies. The entity.
Well, hold on. Let's
Okay.
finish this other.
Okay, all right, finish that.
Thing
Just
quick.
come back to me then.
No elephants.
So, I'll make a motion that we approve measure 2 with the amended title of a bylaw amendment to allow the president to reject member petitions that violate applicable law on the AGM ballot.
Second.
All right, call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Make a motion to approve measure 3 with the amended title bylaw amendment to clarify borrowing purposes by the board to be included on the AGM ballot.
Second.
Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. And I'll make a motion to include measure 4, the amended title, bylaw amendment to clarify special assessment purposes on the AGM ballot.
Second.
Second,
All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
And
All right,
Steffi's
that
voting in,
passes.
Steffi's also voting in chat. So,
Yeah, okay.
yes,
She's voted yes on those.
yes.
So, all right, proxies, go ahead, Linda.
okay, so one of the things is there's nothing about proxies in the NNE manual. So the NNE can follow the direction the board gives, which means we're going to need a policy. For the ballot portion of the proxies, I would like to know two things after reading the attorney's opinion. Number one, are you going to have both common and directed proxies? And number two, are you going to require a notary on that proxy form?
I would be in favor of the notary, just helps, ensure everything is official and the signatures are all valid. As far as common or directed proxy, I guess just so people are aware, common proxy gives the proxy voter the permission to vote how the proxy sees fit. Whereas a directed proxy, the person giving their vote to the proxy dictates how the proxy voter votes for them. In case
I think
people
what's
don't.
missing from this conversation for our community is an explanation of what a proxy is and for, Linda, which might be helpful for people looking from home to get a greater context on of this conversation.
So Sudden Valley used to use proxies, and a proxy is basically a form that allows someone to have someone vote in their stead if they can't make the annual general meeting. And a direct, like AJ explained exactly what they were. That's what proxies used to be used for. The answer from Unilect, and you all got to see that when we asked them about proxies, is they said, when you have mail-in or absentee ballots, which mail-in ballots are considered absentee ballots, according to the Secretary of State in the state of Washington, the Secretary of State. So you have absentee ballots, and usually if you have those where a person can vote their mind rather than having to show up in person and vote the way they want to vote, that's kind of what all these different sorts of types of voting are all about.
Yeah, proxies are pretty common in the corporate world for shareholders and stuff. A lot of times shareholders not super involved in the business necessarily, and they'll pass their proxy over to someone who's on the board or someone who's more involved to, either, a lot of times it's like a common proxy where they let that person vote for them as they're more knowledgeable of everything. A little less that way in the HOA world, but our stuff's a bit more straightforward.
Is it pretty common here, Linda, for people to vote by proxy, and what type of numbers are we talking about?
We
haven't voted by proxy for, I can't even count the number of years. What I can tell you is when we all used to get our mail at the rotunda, you used to be able to go to the rotunda. We used to have a giant barrel for recycle materials. And if you went there and put something in there, you would find envelope upon envelope that people just threw their proxies in the trash that were mailed to them. I think that in mail-in or absentee ballots are just I think it allows everybody a way to vote. There are very few people that are somewhere that they can't mail their ballot back, and we've given the whole thing of you've agreed to do postage paid on return. So I think the board has done everything. And I think a lot of places, if they're really small, many of them still go with in-person or proxy meetings. A small condominium association of maybe 50 or 100 units. And sometimes their proxies are different when you have a condominium. And I can't even begin to address that. But I think more and more, it's been years. I had to dig back into some old stuff I had from 2001 to even find an old ballot and an old book that had voting instructions and stuff in it.
Yeah, I think they got pulled out of the bylaws because it's makes things a little more convoluted, and unfortunately our legislator decided to, make HOA voting more complex than what than what our state does, for whatever reason or not. Yeah.
Basically, Washington State is a mail-in ballot state.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure why the legislator was so set on, just more of their reaching into our business and deciding for us how things should work in our neighborhood, basically.
So then you want a notary stamp. I meet with the committee on Monday. There's other forms that I got little drafts of that I just need to know how to finalize them so I can share them on Google Docs so we can work on them at the meeting on Monday evening. And one is the notary form and the other is the instructions. But once again, I need to know if you're going to use both kinds of proxies. There's a form that I found online that's an option. And you either check one and say, hey, this is a directed proxy, or you check another one and say, this is a common proxy. And then you fill out that section of the form with your name, the person you give your attorney in fact, or your permission to vote for you, and then they send it back. If you're going to allow both, then we should use that form. If you're only going to allow directed or common, then I would just get rid of half the form.
Just to kind of maybe address some of this stuff so we can put that policy together formally. I guess, is there some consensus around, whether we would want to utilize a notary or not? Is anyone opposed to using a notary?
Is the purpose of using a notary to cut down on unauthorized voting?
I think it might be twofold. It'll also cut down on proxy voting in general, but it'll also ensure, because I think that's the problem, why it was taken out of the bylaws, right, Linda? That it was being abused in the past?
There have been some real interesting, I can't talk about it. Yes, people used to duplicate our proxy forms because they were just a colored sheet of paper. And there were two different colors. One was blue and one was orange. And somebody got a hold of the same color orange paper and the same color blue paper and just had fun. And it's just, there then was a rule put in place of you may not duplicate these. I've actually put a watermark on the proxy form. This says SVCA 2021. We need to number them. Working on that still, but once again, until I know if you're going to use both form, I need to know what the form needs to look at like to be able to have the rest of my committee look at it. And because we also have the ballot to look at. I'm going to let them look at the pamphlet. I'm almost all done with the pamphlet. I still need to make that final change that AJ has in there for now that I know for sure we're going to have a live AGM, but that's just cut, paste, and a half a minute of my time. But that's not a hard thing to do. It's all it took for me to find AJ's answer to his question. But the ballot basically is done. I have to wait. I have to add that last ballot measure. I already have all the candidates on it. And that sort of thing. So I'm close to done with that ballot form that I need to have them look at. And because the way Unilect does it is the instructions on how to vote the ballot are on one side, which is just for the mail-in ballot. It doesn't have a lot to do with proxies, rather than complicate their life. We have if you read your section of how to vote, if you vote a proxy, it's coming back here.
Yeah, Richard told us that the law says that the proxy vote has to be done in person. So if people are going to use a proxy, that person that they select is going to have to come and do in-person voting at the meeting.
It's because if you return it ahead of time, people are going to have to be vetted. What if if this person who has appointed someone to vote their ballot, a directed ballot, if they're delinquent in their dues, they only can vote on the budget. And then my whole question is, and I don't know the answer to this question, is the person that you direct or give authority to, does that person have to be a member in good standing? That's something I can find nothing on.
I don't believe so, because you're allowed to give your proxy to like your attorney or something if you wanted to.
That's true, and he wouldn't. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'm sure Richard could answer that question pretty quickly for us, as well.
Yeah, and maybe, like you say, it could just be a moot point. It's just something, because when they did proxies, I'll tell you something really funny. You had to be paid through the end of the year to be able to vote and be current in your. I read that and I was shocked beyond belief when we used to do this back in 2001. So
Yeah.
Things have changed. Things have changed.
So is there any objections to the notary? Sounds like most people are in favor of the notary.
For both people, right?
I'm in favor of the notary.
Yeah, I think, both people would have to be verified.
I got it. I just need to shrink down the form a little bit.
Good question. So you're saying that the resident notarizes it, gives it to the proxy gets it notarized, then they have to bring it in person to hand it in.
Yep.
There's two notaries and okay, gotcha.
Yep.
I mean, they could mail it in to the office if they really wanted to.
Well, Linda said they had to do
It
it.
has to be in person.
It has to be in person. So there's
How
all
do I say it?
No, they could mail the proxy form to admin so that it gets to Linda so that they can be vetted so that person can get their ballot to vote then in person.
That's still
I guess.
kind of something that's up in the air with how this all works. Because it's like you still have to be able to, even if they would bring it the day of, before they would get issued a ballot or ballots, if they have more than one proxy for someone, you'd still have to go through, and that's what I worry about, go through the process of vetting those members before you give the person who has the proxy the ballot they get to vote. It just kind of is ugly.
I have a question. I don't understand the second part. I don't, why would you need a second? Why would the proxy need a notar? Why would he have to have a notarized statement? They're, or she, or they, because they're going to come, they'll be there in person. You can check their ID and stuff, right?
Yeah, I just,
It just seems like, why, what are they getting notarized? I don't understand that. That's the part I'm a little confused. Like the second one, not the owner, but the proxy. What is the proxy getting notarized? He's just notarizing that same form? Again, I
yes,
apologize. I
yes,
always use
yes,
that.
exactly, exactly.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I always use the
No,
male
no, no, no,
pronouns.
no.
I apologize. Getting used to the new world. I'm old. I'm sorry.
Okay, so we are in favor of the notary.
Okay.
We do have to provide for the in-person voting at the AGM as well. Then, so we are gonna need that, that ballot that can be used for, that's not a unelect, that the proxy would then vote or someone would vote in person at the meeting, right? Or do we get like ballots extras from Unilec, or how does that work, Linda?
How Unilec did it last year is she has a different, it's same sheet of paper. It's just that it's pink instead of white. True, it's obnoxious, but if we go through this process of them bringing the proxy with them or having us have it so that they can come and vote these ballots, all we have to do is Unilec says if we have a process, they can vote them. And it's basically they'd be given the pink ballot and they would either, number one, have a directed proxy and they could go up and wait at the meeting and fill it out there. But directed, that person has already indicated on that ballot that one of our regular ballots will sit on the back side of that proxy form because you have to put that on every proxy. So basically that proxy form would sit there. If they direct it, they will then vote their ballot, but they give it to their proxy. That's a directed proxy. If they don't, then we just give them, once they've presented their proxy forms on the day of in the morning, then we give them the form and they go upstairs and they go through all the measures. They vote how they want to vote. And then they fold it up and they put it in the ballot box that will be put around the room by the NNE staff, our NNE committee.
Okay, that sounds good. Further clarify a few things for this policy. Are we fine with offering both common and directed proxies, or do we want to limit it to one or the other?
Limit it. Because the other is good for 11 months. If we do it like this, like where they actually, that's it. They have to vote that and that's the end of it. So
So you're saying directed only?
if it's directed and then,
I think that
that's my opinion.
further, yeah, I think that makes sense to me, I guess.
If the purpose is for someone to vote the way someone wants to vote at the meeting, directed is probably, that's how that person tells that person exactly how they want them to vote.
Yeah.
With a common proxy, it's like you do whatever you think is best.
I think it's, I would agree, a directed proxy. If that person can't make it, it still gives them their voice to vote as opposed to somebody else's. Seeing glazing over eyes is what I'm saying.
It's hard, guys. It's not easy.
Is anyone opposed to doing directed only? Okay. And then the last thing that I kind of see from reading through what Richard has told us, so the state law allows for the presiding officer at the AGM to determine how in-person voting happens at the AGM. And there's a slew of different ways that the legislator further complicating our election processes, but basically saying like show of hands, voice vote, standing, or written ballot. I think my preference, and I would assume Linda and the N&E committee's preference, would be that we only allow written ballot votes at the in-person meeting, which would be consistent with how we've always kind of handled that. You know, voice votes and that type of thing are going to be a bit more convoluted and, you know, not as efficient. Is anyone opposed to limiting that to written ballot only at the in-person AGM? And that means if you're voting at the AGM, you know, you're not going to be able to vote if you come to the Zoom AGM, the Zoom portion, because it'll be a written ballot.
But if it's not a proxy, they still can come and get a ballot and do in-person voting. Sonia can tell you on Saturday morning, and if they don't want to come to the meeting, if they don't, they still can put their special ballot in a special ballot box, and it will be considered an in-person ballot.
Is there any objection to that as well? All right, well, we'll work on getting a official policy drafted up for N&E to be able to operate under, and for me to give that kind of direction as the presiding officer at the AGM for those rules. I don't really see anything else pressing based on our discussion with Richard.
The only thing I'm going to send you, AJ, is the additional changes you need to make to the agenda. It's one.
Yeah, I think we got to add voting under discussion back
Yep.
in and all
That's
that.
correct. That's correct. It's just, it's
Yep.
a lot of times, that's all.
We can do that.
I know, it's not hard.
All right. Do we have any further discussion on the AGM? I'm sure we'll be talking about it again at the next meeting.
Well, hopefully, just to tell you guys, I plan on having stuff to Unilect by the 15th. They will then send us back, because you basically have approved everything for what goes on it, other than the candidates things. We have to do the ballot, and I have to have my committee vote on that and agree that that's, the ballot is ours and comes from N&E. But then I certainly could send that to all of you. It's just, it's very simple. You simply, the only thing that's been done is the language of each one of the measures has been copied onto one side of the thing. The thing you may want to look at closely is the voting instructions. They're probably going to be the same as last year, except there's a different mailing address. It's going to be a different PO box that the ballots will be going to, and the 1-800 number has changed. But once again, that's just an update for this year of how they're going to handle it. But it's the same company. They've just changed numbers, done little things like that, and they've changed the location of the PO box, which is their privilege. But you'll get a copy of all of their, you'll get back how do I want to say it? Printer proofs. And you're going to have to approve that before they'll go to print. And I don't know if that means calling a meeting or if that means everybody, you know, it used to be just everybody sat and a bunch of people got together in the back room of El Agave, or Bob's as it used to be, and went over it and just made sure things were correct and all the wording was there, that sort of thing. And, you know, that's how it used to be done. It wasn't even that there was this, you know, you've approved exactly what you want to say. The only thing that I haven't seen a copy of is the reserve study stuff. But other than that, everything that matters, you've already approved. You know, but somebody, there should be a group, a small group, to look at the printer proofs and say, yay, verily.
Yeah, we'll do some proofreading of that.
You know, we can do it in the evening too. If I know a lot of you work during the day, but I'm saying even just a small group of people, that's all it takes.
Did you, were you able to find out the difference in the price of black and white and color?
No, I sent Catherine a request right away. They have a very large election they're doing right now where they're using voting machines and everything else. And she basically told me that she'd be kind of out of the way. She did send me a very quick response saying, I'll look into it. And that's all I saw from her. If you'd like to see the email, I'd be happy to share it.
No, I was just wondering.
Yep, that's all she could tell me. I'm sure she's in the middle, you know, of an election, and it's like, yeah, sure, that's the last of my worries. But I'm sure she'll get back with me. She's really good about that. And I'll ask her that and tell her that we need to know before we send our print copy. Fair enough to all of you before we send our stuff? I've got about a week.
Yeah, we'll get everything squared away. Joel can push on the consultant again tomorrow and try and get that thing stamped and finalized.
Yeah, hey, Linda. So I just have a question. So is this going to be like last year to where we still have a chance to, like, as long as we don't change the parameters of a page, we could just swap out one exhibit for another one?
That's what I've been doing with all the stuff you guys sent me this year. Every single thing that's the document you sent, that's all I do is swipe them out.
Okay.
You know, the language changed this year considerably that was added, but as far as the tables with any of that stuff, it's just one for the other.
Right, meaning like the final one that you send in on the 15th, we could swap out a schedule for another one, meaning the same schedule, just an updated one.
Ooh, I don't know, because you're going to have dates. There's a specific date on all this stuff that's in the language that has to be, I think, in 3, if not 4 different places. I haven't got my copy out. I apologize. I put that stuff away unless I'm going to work on it. But there's, you know, there's a date, and it gives a specific date of the reserve study.
Right, yes. I just mean, like, for example, if you have a schedule, I'll just make it up. You have a schedule and there's a number of percentage in there that says 23%. Oh shoot, that should have been 32, meaning we could change the schedule and just swap out the schedule. So the page itself stays the same. It's just an updated cut and paste job of the schedule.
The only time we'd have to do that is if when we send it into them.
Yeah, the proof, I mean.
We might be able, I think the proof, yes, we could.
Yeah.
If I just told them, hey, it's just a table for a table.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have all the language stuff squared away. It would just be the table.
Yeah, it's the less.
We should be able to have all the language stuff squared away by the end of the weekend.
Right, yeah.
And
Meaning,
then,
so like for the reserve study, worst case scenario, let's just say they don't get us the approved final copy. What you're going to get will take up all the space anyways. It's just swapping a like for like.
Yeah, as long as it's going to be, you're going to have the same size for the same document. That it's just like I could put the 2021 in there and boom, there it is.
Yeah.
You know, and then you just put a date in.
She was asking about those dates, Joel, because they're in the text of the.
Can we change text, meaning?
Like it's in the body of the package where it'll say, you know, reserve study dated, blah, blah, blah. So it's not in the table. It's outside of the table. It's in the text.
Yeah. What if it's outside of the table, like text outside of the table?
That would be tough because then I think there's 3 or 4 places. And like I say, I don't want to try and go through that here with you guys sitting there. But I know even as I'm sitting here, that there are at least 3 places that have X's in that we don't have the answer to yet.
Yeah. Meaning that can be touched up too, obviously.
But
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Let's just
then
focus
you're asking
on
for
getting that
lots
reserve
of
study done
changes.
tomorrow.
Well,
Ideally.
I'm just planning ahead just in case, like he's not there or something. Or
Yeah. But
I mean, I'm not talking about inserting additional sentences or anything like that. Just
No, but the date, I'm saying, but you would be changing 1,
it's like 3
2,
places. Probably 3.
3. There are 3 places where there's a date. And it's like, I'm just saying, you know, if you don't have to do it, it's not wise. It's one thing to swipe a table for a table, but it's another thing to have to alter other pages, especially when it's the printer proof.
Uh-huh.
That's what I worry about.
Yeah, you're just worried that a date doesn't get updated, is what you're getting at.
Yes.
Right.
You know, and it's just, that's why, you know, when we decided we were going to take Swinton, I thought that they were supposed to be able to do this and jiffy by gosh, we'll have it done in no time flat. I find myself in the same position I was last year.
consultants in my world do that all the time. Over promise, under deliver.
Oh, I hear you. It's just in this case, they under deliver and you can't get your pamphlets mailed on time. Guess what, folks?
We're actually running.
We'll get it done. If I have to, I'll call myself.
And you said the 15th, Linda, is what you're shooting for to get the.
I'm shooting for no later than the 15th, because the 13th I'm going to look over the ballot with my committee.
Right. Okay.
And I'll have that then. Then you've already approved everything that's going to go in the thing. We have to do proxy forms yet that you've already said this is what we want, but I'm you know, and the proxy forms, we may just print ourselves. I'll ask Catherine about that, because if we don't have a lot and they have to be delivered from Sudden Valley, we can just print up a dozen and hope.
Yeah, I don't think we need Unilect to print those for us.
No, and I don't think they have to. I think we just need to supply them with the ballot. And then they have their language on the back of the ballot that tells people how to vote it.
Yeah.
That's all, that whole page of how to vote your individual ballot is their language that they require.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Starting to get late.
I know. I'm done. I'm ready to go to work on my stuff here.
We got a closed session here real quick. And then we'll be done.
Yahoo.
Do we got a motion to move into closed session?
Motion to move into closed session.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
All right. See you over there real quick. This bright computer screen is bothering my eyes in this darkness I'm in. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3.
Ugh.
We're not gonna have Joel back.
I think
Oh, that's right.
I think we can just get moving along here. There's Brian. So we got everyone now. Do we got a motion to move back into open session?
Move to open, back into open session at
Second.
37.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. No action will be taken as a result of closed session. Moving to last round of property owner comments.
Taking a peek here, still have 3 people with us. If any one of you 3 would like to jump in, just use raise hand in Zoom and we'll bring you over. Closed session sends quite a few people home, looks like.
All right. It's late. Let's call it. Thank you for those that showed up. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Happy
All in
birthday,
favor?
Josh.